I want to thank all the organizations who, without any type of personal contact, reached out to your members, and you asked your members to come here today. Give the organizations that brought people out here today, give them a big hand. I am so proud of you today. Do you know that this protest today will go down as one of the greatest protests in the city of Newark in history? When we got up here, the people were still at Broad Market on both sides of the street. It was magnificent. But brothers and sisters, it's not about a moment, it's about a movement. This was a great moment today, and I'm glad I lived long enough to see it. But brothers and sisters, trust me when I tell you, a great struggle is coming in America. A great struggle. One more difficult than those that existed during the 60s. But we got to organize. Listen, everybody in here must be a part of an organization. That's what the future requires. This is not to say you don't have an individual life and you can't do things on your own. But ultimately, to have the kind of power that we had today, we had power today. We shut it down today. Shut it down. But do you know, listen, do you know that we're going to have to do this again and again and again? That's why it's called a struggle. That's why it's not called a magic wand. A sister called me last night about 11 o'clock when I was parked in front of the 7-Eleven. I was still trying to do work, trying to get everything together for this protest today, and I'm sitting in the car. Sister called me. She was crying on the phone. And she said she was full of pain about how George Floyd was killed. But you know, the thing that struck me was not that she said she was full of pain, but she said she felt so alone. She did not feel the compassion around her that she thought she would feel. I hope she came here today, because if she was here today, she would see that she was not alone. Not at all. Not alone. And then when I was standing in Staples this morning, trying to get those little black and white posters made, a sister called me on the phone. And one of the first things she said to me was somebody had told her about this protest, but she don't believe in protests, and that protests don't get nothing done. So I took a deep breath. I mean, I could have just unloaded. But I took a deep breath, and I engaged her in a conversation calmly. And I said, sister, the whole history of black people in this country shows that if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Every time that we faced a major challenge, we had to come together in protest. A slave rebellion was a protest. You know how many hundreds of years there were slave rebellions? The Civil War was a protest. Harriet Tubman rescuing black people and bringing them north was a protest. There was an abolitionist movement. It was a protest. I went to Princeton University. You know where I come from? I come from Ridgewood Avenue in Newark. And when my father died at 4 years old, I moved to 12th Street. And I lived on 527 South 12th Street between 16th and 18th Avenue for 22 years. My mother was the seamstress in the cleaners around the corner on 16th Avenue. My mother could have never afforded to send me to Princeton University, no matter how good my grades were or how smart I was. You know how I got into Princeton? Because black people kicked the doors of Princeton University open. They kicked the doors of Rutgers University open. They kicked the doors of Harvard open. They kicked the doors of Yale open. They kicked the doors of all of those colleges across America that were closed to us. Because without the Civil Rights Act, I couldn't have went to Princeton. Without the Voting Rights Act, I couldn't have went to Princeton. Without the Higher Education Act, I couldn't have went to Princeton. And all those acts happened because people were protesting for you. People that didn't even know you, didn't even know that you were going to be born, wanted to make it possible for you to have a better life than they did. So they protested. They lost their jobs teaching because they protested. They were kicked out of college during the Civil Rights Movement because they protested. Some of them were killed on freedom rides, killed on sit-ins, killed on voter registration drives because they wanted us to have a better life. Brothers and sisters, protest is not a magic wand. It's not going to be no instant change. Protest is a weapon that we use in our protracted struggle. And then what do we mean by protracted struggle? We mean a struggle that's going to take a long time. We talked about Civilian Review Board today. It took 60 years from the time that Amiri Baraka started campaigning for a Civilian Review Board until 2014 to bring it about. Social change is the hardest. And changing the institutions of policing, they are the hardest. So I want you to be involved. I want you to be in the struggle for the long haul. Not just for the day. Not just for the big march. Yes, I want you to celebrate that we had a great march today. You should be happy. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be so happy tonight that I'm going to sleep really good. Because we got thousands and thousands of people together. And we marched out and we came in. And when the account is written, when you watch the news tonight, and when you read the paper tomorrow, you will see that we kept our eyes on the prize. And there was nothing that distracted us and took our attention away from our goal, brothers and sisters. We gotta fight. So I invite those of you who are not members of the People's Organization for Progress to join the People's Organization for Progress. We are a grassroots organization. We work for racial, social, economic justice and peace. We were founded in 1982. We will celebrate our 38th anniversary in August. We've been here for 38 years. We are all volunteer organization. We don't take money from corporations. We don't take money from political parties. We don't take money from the government. Everything we do through our own voluntary self-help efforts. And if you want to be a part of an organization that doesn't just talk about change, but actually fights for change, then I invite you to join the People's Organization for Progress. You can be a member of P.O.P, and you can be a member of whatever organization you're in now. You don't have to quit an organization to join us. We only have one requirement. We don't care what your religion is, what your political party is. We don't care if you're pretty or ugly, if you're fat or skinny. We don't care what your sexual orientation is, the color of your skin is. We have one requirement, and that is this. Do you want justice? 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 If you want justice, then you should join the People's Organization for Progress. So brothers and sisters, I thank you for coming. I thank the mayor today who marched the whole route with us. Give him a hand. He's not here, but give him a hand. Listen, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. When Rodney King was beaten in the 1990s, we wanted to march in Newark. And we had a black mayor at that time. Yes, we did. We had a black mayor at that time. No, this was after Gibson. I don't want to say the name. We had a black mayor. We had to go to court to sue the city of Newark to have that march to protest the beating of Rodney King. So when people tell you things don't change, they're not telling the truth. They're speaking from their emotion. But an examination of history will show you, no, we didn't change the whole thing, but we didn't even ask for a permit for this march today. We didn't have no permit, but the mayor came out and marched with us today. He marched the whole way with us today. You gotta study, and you have to not only study ancient history, you have to study contemporary history. You know, because some of you get radicalized and you think nothing happened before you got radicalized. Let me tell you something. I can remember not too long ago when in these colleges, and when I say not too long, I'm talking about 6-7 years ago, people whispered the word socialism. They whispered the word socialism. You wouldn't let the professor know you was a socialist because you know he would hold it against you and give you a bad grade. At Princeton University, I was part of a secret student organization called the Student Association for the Study of Scientific Socialism. Because to even say the word, you risk your academic career. But that has changed. Bernie Sanders, even though he's not in the race anymore, he changed political discourse in America. People are not ashamed or scared to say the word socialist. I was doing an interview on the TV the other day. They said, Mr. Hamm, are you a socialist? I said, yes, I am. I'm a democratic socialist. Yes, I am. But I'm not just a socialist. You know, we're multidimensional. I'm a socialist, but I'm also a black liberationist because I want to see the liberation of black people from all forms of racial oppression. But I'm not only a socialist and a black liberationist, I'm also a humanist because I want to see the elimination of suffering for all human beings. Because when you can put suffering on one group of people, it's very easy to shift it and put that suffering on somebody else. Things have changed, but brothers and sisters, we're going to have more big marches. And in the future, we're going to have to engage in civil disobedience. And in the future, we're going to have to engage in massive economic boycotts. And in the future, we're going to have to use our votes. And in the future, we're going to have to use our dollars. I hope that you will financially support organizations like the People's Organization for Progress. Because we can't do the things we do without finance. Even to make a revolution, you need finance. Where's my poster? We need a revolution. Bring it over here. We need bring it quick because people ready to go. They don't want to hear me talking all night. While we struggle against police brutality, that's just one struggle. We struggle for affordable housing and gentrification. We struggle against gentrification. We struggle for health care for all. We struggle for quality education for all children. We struggle for workers for a living wage, not just a minimum wage. You can't pay no rent on $7.25 an hour or on $8.35 an hour. Yes, we support doubling the minimum wage to $15, but I'm going to tell you something. $15 ain't nothing to crow about. You know, we need a living wage. And in this struggle, we must also struggle for economic justice. We must struggle for the rights of workers, like that brother that was here, Chris Smith, the right of workers to unionize. One of the reasons we're having such a hard time in America, because we don't have a strong union movement. Less than 10% of workers in America are unionized. So there's a lot of things we got to struggle for, but in the final analysis, we must struggle for the fundamental transformation of the United States. I urge you to read the works of Dr. Martin Luther King. Measure of a man, stride toward freedom, strength to love, why we can't wait, where do we go from here, chaos or community, and trumpet of conscience. In the fifth book, where do we go from here, community or chaos, Dr. King said this. He said we need, and this was in 1966, Dr. King said we need a radical redistribution of power and wealth in America. In 1966, Dr. Martin Luther King said we need a fundamental transformation of our socioeconomic system. Dr. King wasn't just fighting for civil rights. He was also fighting for economic rights. But he was also fighting for fundamental transformation. At the end of his life, his last campaign was the Poor People's Campaign. Do you know what Dr. King really wanted to do? Read Where Do We Go From Here. He said, I want to bring 1 million people to Washington, D.C. This is what he said. I want to bring the black from the ghettos, the Latinos from the barrios, the Native Americans from the reservations, and the poor whites from Appalachia. And we're going to take 1 million people to Washington. And we're going to engage in massive civil disobedience and shut Washington down until Congress passes an economic Bill of Rights. That is why they killed Martin Luther King. And do you know what? Let me tell you something. I'll be 67 in December. I know what happened during the 60s. And I'm going to tell you something. We are actually struggling ideologically to get back to where we were in 1968. To get back to where we were. Let me tell you something. We had a phrase, a slogan in the 1960s called Right Around the Corner. Because we thought, literally, the revolution was right around the corner. But it didn't happen. The FBI went into work. They had a program, COINTELPRO. They killed off our militant black leaders, put them in jail, destroyed our militant black organizations, and we have been struggling to get back to where we were ever since. So I thank you, brothers and sisters, for coming out today. I don't want to be out here all night. I could talk for a while, but give yourselves a big hand. I want to thank those of you who were marshals today. And listen. I want to thank the brothers and sisters that worked to put this demonstration together who didn't even ask to speak. There are a whole bunch of people that had a right to be right here, but they stood aside so that the masses of the people could speak. Because speaking, although it's something simple, some of these young people that spoke here today, they will remember this moment for the rest of their lives. For the rest of their lives. This was their political baptism. This, for many of the youth that were here today, this was their first demonstration, their first act of resistance. This was their political baptism today. And they will never forget it. And it was made possible because people who did work said, no, I'm not going to ask to speak. I'll let them speak. That's really a selfless revolutionary spirit. And I think there was a brother standing right here. Came all the way up from Penns Grove. You know what Penns Grove is? Penns Grove is the last town on the turnpike. Here's a sister that drove up here Wednesday from North Carolina to be here today. This sister Janine. She drove up here. She drove up here. So lastly, when you get home, go on Facebook and look up the People's Organization for Progress. Sign up on our Facebook page. If we could just get half the brothers and sisters that came in, I'm not even talking about joining P.O.P. If we could get the half of the brothers and sisters that was here today to keep working with us, we'd have the most powerful political organization in the whole state of New Jersey. It's about power, brothers and sisters. And nobody is going to give it to us. Power is not given. Power is taken. We didn't wait for somebody to invite us to have this march today. We had a meeting of our organization on Thursday night, and we marched today in the thousands on Saturday. So stay safe, continue to social distance, and do everything else. I don't want anybody to catch the coronavirus, but there's some things worse than corona, like racism. You want to talk about virus? That's a virus. That's a more intractable virus. You'll get over corona. America been suffering from racism for 400 years. 400 years. We want revolution. We need a new generation of revolutionaries to step forward. A new generation of brothers and sisters who will not see organizing and mobilizing and working in the struggle as a part-time thing, but something they want to dedicate their lives to, so that we could build the kind of movement that can actually change this country. They're not going to let us change the country. We should vote, but it's going to take more than voting. It's going to take a movement, a revolutionary movement. And to have a revolutionary movement, you must have a revolutionary organization. You must have an organization of professional revolutionaries, of people who see it, not perhaps as their vocation, but as their avocation to work to build the movement and to transform society. Thank you very much. Power to the people! Power to the people! Power to the people! No justice! No justice! No justice! If there ain't gonna be no justice, if there ain't gonna be no justice,